Saka leading the Arsenal break. Martinelli, and now Saka lashes it
in. We've got Ryan Garry, currently at Arsenal under 23s. He'll probably be just on voice for the moment. And then we've got, from a national team's perspective, we've got Lee Carsley, who's working with some of the best talent in the country alongside Eddie Boothroyd at the under 21s. So thank you for your input. Logistics, if you just want to listen to the content, listen to the discussions, if it stimulates or leaves things curious, there's a chat box where we can stimulate some questions from you, which I can then feed either into Lee or into Ryan. So thank you for your attendance. It really got me interested looking back over the history of the FA Cup. And I can't remember a player, and Lee and Ryan can probably have some input in this, but the impact of a teenager in both the Premier League, Europe, and also the FA Cup, who represents his club in all stages of the FA Cup and hopefully will represent in the final. I just can't remember it. Can you, Lee? Any young teenage players?
No, I think obviously I was lucky enough to be at Everton at the time when Wayne Rooney come through. So to see his progression, obviously they're totally different kind of players, but that the similarities between the players is that mentality and that almost that the fact that they've got that mentality to play week in, week out and be very consistent.
Yeah. I think looking back, 1983, I think Norman Whiteside was the 18-year-old who actually went on to win it. Yeah. We can probably compare some similarities playing I suppose, in those wide areas based around Bukayo. Ryan, are you with us? I know you can hear us. Are you with us? It's quite interesting. I'm lucky to support Arsenal in both coach development and the observation of their young players based around some of our national teams' work. So I was fortunate enough to see Bukayo as a foundation player. And it links to what the mental side of the game. But Bukayo Saka now with these young gunners talks about humility, mentality, resilience, all of those things that we hear within the football context. But I just think he as a player epitomises all of those, even when he enters the building at Arsenal at 8 years old. Do you think they're requirements as a minimum away from the technical sides, Lee?
Yeah, I think, obviously to play at a club like Arsenal, it goes without saying that they're going to be talented. I would imagine there's lots and lots of really good players at Arsenal. And I think the key to longevity within football is having that character, having that mentality, being coachable, being able to take on information, being able to be good around your teammates and be a good person. And I think all of the opinion that comes back about the player's character is really positive. So that's a fundamental. Being a good player is one thing, but being a good person is equally as important.
And do we do that enough? Do you think? Do we get to know the players as much as we possibly could from an England perspective? Because I think all of those boxes.
Yeah, because obviously, similar to with being in the England pathway, the talent gets you there. And Gareth talks about it within the seniors. It's the character that's going to keep you there. And that ability to keep improving and be a good influence on your teammates. And I think it's like I say, he shows all these characteristics whenever I've seen him play.
Yeah. And it was interesting. So Ryan will join, but I speak to some of the coaches who've known him and seen him through each of these phases, and it's not unique, but learning and development for players isn't a straight line. It's not linear, but for Bukayo, it seems to be. He enters the door at 8, knows where he is, very grounded, knows what his destination is, and just keeps going, keeps surprising people. Ryan this morning talks about he's a coach's dream. He's low maintenance.
Yeah.
From our perspective as an FA four-corner model, he just ticks the boxes.
Yeah.
And it's real interesting. So I look at the 01-02 group that he was involved in the early development years, and there's some fantastic players, but his development pathway, he's probably been tested and challenged and always played up for the right reasons, and then brought back down to manage that mindset that you talked about from such an early age.
Yeah, and I think there's a maturity and a mentality that goes with that. There's an understanding of almost like self-management of where you are, where you need to improve, almost what you need to keep getting into the team and keep progressing. And he seems to have a good understanding of where he is. Looking at a lot of his clips and a lot of his games, he plays in various positions, which obviously means technically he's all-round good player, able to handle the ball, able to make passes, goals, assists, and all the rest of it. But he's also got that football intelligence and understanding of each position, which obviously the academy staff at Arsenal have done a great job with not only Bukayo, but a lot of the players that we coach, the Reece Nelsons, Joe Willock, Eddie. They're technically outstanding. Ainsley as well, Ainsley Maitland-Niles. We worked with them a couple of years ago. Very, very good players.
And I think history would say that Arsenal have a real potential talent pool. They've got loads of exciting players, and that's what interested me about Bukayo, because in the real younger ages within Foundation, playing 7-a-side football, he coped in all of those positions. They played goalkeeper 2-3-1, and he could play in the back two. He could play wide. He could play central. As he looked to develop through YDP, he's played fullback, wide left. Has a strength and a passion both with possession and out of possession. So it's not just that he dominates in certain areas, and we'll allude to some things later, but he can also play top of the diamond, deeper.
That's right.
And he has that creative mentality side to his game.
I was just going to say that I think sometimes for a younger player, especially when you can play in so many positions, it sometimes can be frustrating for the player, but beneficial for the coaches, because they tick so many boxes in so many areas. And especially now he's in that first team environment, the fact that he can play left back, left wing back, like you say, top of the box, various positions, gives him more opportunity to play and get in the team.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity for him. If we just look at the current slide that's up there, so this is his appearances and the games that he's been involved in within this FA Cup.
Yeah.
He's also had a Premier League outstanding first real debut season and made his debut in Europe as a 17-year-old.
Yeah.
What goes through that 18-year-old's mindset when you're playing the current champion of the Championship Leeds and you're coming on as sub, or when you're playing Bournemouth who are set up to stop Arsenal as that wide player? What do you think goes through his mind?
Well, I think first and foremost, the confidence that the coaches at senior level have showed in him. There's obviously a lot of trust there, and he seemed to take to the transition from 23s into the first team, to the seniors, so smoothly. So it's testament to the pathway that they've done, and that they've used at Arsenal to make it really smooth for him. And like you say, he hasn't looked at a place in any of the games, whether it be the Premier League or the FA Cup that I've seen him play.
No, he looks comfortable, and we go back to our model. From every single age, he keeps being tested, keeps challenging, keeps going, I can cope with this. And I just think he's such a potential hot property, and I can understand why the head coach Arteta's just put him on a long-term contract, because he certainly is one of the future players at Arsenal, which that hopefully the club will build around. You talk about the players.
Yeah.
We talk about the development model that will come on to base around England teams and selection, and we'll look at that later based around his history.
Yeah.
Does he fit the model at the moment because of his attacking prowess and the things that he has? Because he's consistently displaying such a level based around the areas of the pitch that he hurts sides with, isn't he?
Yeah, and I think for all of the technical and physical attributes that he's got, the fact that he's able to, I mean, with his frame, he's not exactly 6'2", he's not a big player, but physically he copes really well with it. And I know, like, similar to before we started what we were talking about, what I always come back to is it looks like mentally that he can cope with it. I've seen Arsenal in certain games where they've not played so well, yet he's really consistent. He doesn't seem like and which often happens with younger players, that there's real peaks and troughs. He looks very mentally like safe and steady, which then transmits into his consistency and his ability to stay in the team. And you can just see there that with the amount of minutes that he plays, this isn't the pattern of a young player that's getting 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there. This is an important player that's playing the majority of the games.
Agreed. Ryan, could you just elaborate on that consistency level? So you've known him since he was 8. You've supported him and seen him live. What about this consistency from him, the player?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is actually, one of the super strengths that he has. Like you say, whatever phase or whatever age he's been in, that his development has been very consistent. The level of performance has been very consistent. And I think that what has been really good for us to witness this last season has obviously been the fact that he's really provided a performance level that he did last year in the 23s. I think sometimes when you've got a player that seems to, continuously have that consistency, you could almost sometimes maybe question, okay, what's going to happen when they're in that first team environment? But it seems to be that, with every new challenge on that pathway, he's more than, done enough to show that he's more than capable. And that's been really, really good to see that, because I think that, that level of consistency is rare, especially when you look at, young players. I think it's natural to have ups and downs on that pathway. But, he seems to be an individual that can certainly hit a good level of performance, over many, many years, when you reflect and look at his journey.
With his pathway, Ryan, did he play in a lot of different positions? And is that something that you've done on purpose, or?
To be honest with you, Lee, I would say, Bukayo was always, when he was coming out of the foundation phase into the youth development phase, he would be, more or less playing wide left. And he would play in his own age group and he would play up. And then obviously, I've got to be honest with you, this season, he's played left back, left wing, right wing, and there's a number 10, like you were speaking about before, and that's probably, he's played in more different positions for the first team than he probably has in his academy career. And obviously that's something that we certainly need to reflect on, with regards to seeing youngsters in different positions, because again, he was known as someone who was typically going to play, on the wing or possibly as a left back. And you get to the end of, 18 months on from his debut, and he's played in 4 or 5 positions,
Yeah, definitely.
Do you think that those experiences can actually help consolidate, even though he's so young, this 18-year-old, keeping out experienced players who are internationals at the club? Do you think that's actually helped him, that versatility that he's had from such a young age?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think that, when our sort of, I suppose our motto is that we see an opportunity to be with our first team as a great one. And you can't necessarily be picky or choosy in terms of where you play. And I think that what he has got is a can-do attitude, with regards to, he is someone who would be happy playing in any position. And I think he's shown that in his performances. You know, I remember watching him against Chelsea in the Christmas period, you know, and he was in at left back, and, you know, watching it and thinking, okay, so how's he get on? How's he going to get on against the, you know, the attacking weapons that Chelsea have got? And he took it in his stride, you know, and I think that again goes to maybe, you know, when we look at that four corner model in terms of the psychosocial, you know, he does take things in his stride. He seems to be, you know, more than happy to have the opportunity, and, you know, I think he's taken it this year for sure.
Good. Speaking of opportunity, let's just have a look and capture some of his moments this year in the FA Cup.
Willock. Saka to feed it in, and it must be for Nketiah. The kind of chances strikers dream about, especially when you've been upgraded into the first team.
He's just got to pass it back to where he came from, but a really good cross into a dangerous area.
Deciding not to shoot. In the end, Saka does. Oh, and what a shot! Well, no sooner having built him up, he delivers. Bukayo Saka. It was created by youth and scored by youth, which is a very encouraging sign for Mikel Arteta. Saka really has played further up the pitch. He's a bit of a makeshift left back in truth.
It's the second Saka here, breaking away for Arsenal, and he's swift is Saka. McCrory going with him, and the low angle.
He's had another decent game, Saka. So good going forward.
That's him, isn't it? That's him to a T, Ryan. Do you think this young, exceptional, talented player, do you think it phases him, or did you just get on every day loving what he's doing?
I think he, you know, seeing him around the training ground, he's the same as he was before.
We just lost him there. It's not bad though, is it, Lee? Those stats. So
yeah, it's like I said earlier, it's outstanding the fact that a young player has got so much minutes, and just looking at some of the comments on the side there, you know, you talk about trust. Trust is not something that you can coach. You know, like it's testament to the player as a person that he instills trust in the managers, that they keep picking him. You know, 25 appearances in the Premier League is no mean feat, especially at a club as prestigious as Arsenal. So, and then you look at the Europa Cup as well, where sometimes, you know, you tend to, if you're playing regular in the first team, you sometimes may get rested for these kind of games. But again, played a lot of games. What I noticed as well about him, especially when I first started watching him, was the amount of assists that he was getting. So it's all right getting into them areas, but then having that ability and to keep that, because, you know, going from the 23s to the first team, when you're attacking that goal, there's no one behind it. Now all of a sudden in the first team, there's a lot of excitement, there's a lot of fans there, you know, and having that mentality still just to roll it across. You know, he's like I say, it shows the mentality that he's got.
Yeah.
I spoke, Ryan, this morning to Steve, who you work closely with every single day, and to praise a player is one thing, but his comments were he's the most efficient player he's come across. So he's 18 years old, he's the most efficient player, and obviously that's both with and without the ball. But if you look at the dangerous areas he consistently, going back to that word, gets in, he's gonna cause problems, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. And I mean, I think that, you know, certainly the early part of last season as a first-year scholar, he was with myself and Freddie with the 23s. And, you know, we was reviewing games, and not subjectively, but also objectively, you know, the data was frightening. And like I said earlier on, the most pleasing thing has been, you know, the ability to create assists. So at the moment, you know, he's in the top 5 with regards to when he plays as a left back in the league. You know, he's similar to Alexander-Arnold and Robertson at Liverpool. So, you know, and obviously he's played far less than them, as a
collective
over the season. So there's certainly good bits from that. And I suppose the challenging part for him now is to maintain that. And going back to what you said, Steve had said, it's remarkable because, Steve has got, many seasons experience working at that level. And that was one of the first things he said to me. He couldn't believe from the get-go when he was training with the first team last year, in training, how, effective he was at setting other people up. So it's a great, it's a great strength to have, and long may it continue in the first team in the future.
Is that something that he would work on a lot, Ryan? Or is that something that you would work on a lot with him?
Yeah, I would say that he's, one of his major strengths is that whatever situation, he's very able to break lines with the ball or certainly travel beyond defenders, and then, getting the ball on his left foot. And again, he puts it into very dangerous areas. Struggle for back fours. And, he's very economical in what he does. And I think that's actually what makes him very hard to play against, because he doesn't spend sometimes long enough on the ball to actually get captured by the fullback or the defender. If that makes sense. That's been evident when watching him in first team training sessions, so I think sometimes when you watch a younger player and they've been, because he's always been physically able as he's gone through the age groups. And I think sometimes with players that are so good physically, I think sometimes when they come up against an adult, physically in a first team training session, they can find it difficult. But it was almost the case of he was just, very cute in terms of knowing there'll be less space and time, and that, don't really get caught in physical confrontation and continue to be effective.
Yeah. You linked to it earlier, didn't you, Ryan, that Lee and I were talking about linear pathways, and it doesn't necessarily happen, but Bukayo's displaying that. Comes in early, physically dominant, but coax across the FA four corners. But we talked in reference last night about Mason. Mason had loads of speed bumps, different challenges. Do you think Bukayo's speed bumps are now coming as he enters more into this Premier League status? A quarter of a century of games already. He's accelerated the number of games. We hope he's going to play in the FA Cup final. Do you think that's where he's going to get his real test and challenge now?
I would have to say so. And I say that again, reflecting back on his journey, and he hasn't, been through a major injury. He's always been, very able in his own age group, and has played up, an age group or two, as a schoolboy. And certainly, as a first year scholar, he was straight in with the 23s and did well, and then obviously got his opportunity in the first team. So, with regards to, like you've just said there, with regards to a speed bump, I think potentially, the challenge will now be certainly the reputation that he's building for himself, and
100%.
Teams will know more about him, and therefore it's going to be more challenging for him, more than maybe the reputation he had in the youth development environment. But I think that's a good thing. I do think that, again, I'll go back to how he is as an individual, and how, that the stakeholders in his life, with regards to his family, I think he's in a good place to hopefully, hit those challenges and come out the other side for sure.
I think, Rich, as well, when you asked me earlier about where does that fit in with the England pathway, I think it's in moments where there are speed bumps and down periods where sometimes the players coming away from their clubs and having 10 days on camp and just put as much support around them as we can. Sometimes gets them going again. So it's not always the same voice. It's sometimes, just getting away from that environment and almost getting a bit of fresh air, playing with different players, and providing them, like I said, with that support. Sometimes helps. There's no doubt he's going to hit a speed bump at some point, because everyone does, and it's at them periods that's when they need to support especially the younger ones.
We hope so, don't we? Because if we look at Bukayo the person, he was highly intellectual at school. He a good model, and he just fits this mold. And I go back to the pair, these young gunners. So much humility, so much respect. Knows where he's placed within this football pecking order, but doesn't seem fazed by going toe to toe with vastly experienced players, which allows him. And the thing that interests me the most is we haven't even discussed his technical ability to deal with the ball, but also without it, because that's one of his super strengths as well, isn't it, Ryan? He's defending 1 versus 1.
Yeah, I mean, the defensive displays, so forget what we've said about his offensive. Certainly what he showed in those games playing as a fullback was very promising. And again, we are, typically talking about someone who, if you talk about the staff MDT meetings at the end of season when we're reviewing and we're building squads and we're looking at what we've got, his weaponry was really seen as more of an offensive player. So, I think that is something that maybe as developers we need to look at in the future with regards to, are we prepping our players to take that opportunity in the first team, no matter where that opportunity is? Yeah. Because as an offensive wide player, his minutes have been probably shared between the left midfield and left back position. And, I think that's maybe something which we've got to be mindful of moving forward. Certainly, post-COVID, where maybe there are more opportunities for younger players, and those players need to be, certainly more adaptable in different positions for sure.
Because if he gets in those areas, he very rarely misses the target, but you can trust his work rate to help the team out defensively in all areas of the pitch, can't you?
Yeah, and I think that's something that is part of the modern game now. So I think that gone are the days maybe where you have just defensive players and just defensive players. I think you need a 360 player able in all moments of the game to do a job for the team, no matter what position.
And his personality suggests that, doesn't he? Like you said earlier, he doesn't go, "Oh no, I'm a 10." He'll go, "Yeah, I'll go do your job." Yeah. That's the real essence for me. You get a sense of the smell when you see him. He just wants to be the best he can be.
Yeah,
and he displays that consistently. We go back to that word again. If we go back to some of his early years, and this is a question to both of you, does the international experiences that Arsenal have allowed him set him up for that opportunity? Because there's more tours than ever. He's played in the Dallas Cup, he's played in the Night Cup, he's played in America, and then he gets his opportunity with the first team on pre-season. He just walks in as if it's nothing's new. He's just there, isn't he? Has that helped him having that varied international and tournament football in those real younger ages to allow him to, when he gets called up at pre-season to America, he just goes in and copes?
Yeah, I believe so. I think you hit upon something there with regards to, he's been very fortunate to have a higher level of exposure, in different games, different tournaments, both with ourselves and with England. And I think from that, if you have those opportunities along your pathway, you do find yourself. And I think it's interesting when you look at the video there of the different teams that he's playing against. I think that you need to be knowing what to do against different, systems of play, different styles, different environments. So I think that enriches their understanding of what's needed and what's required when they do get into, different games in the senior level. I think that part of developing is making sure that the players know all the different, styles and systems that you can come up against, because it shouldn't be a shock, should it, when you are maybe making your second and third appearance in the senior team coming up against a different style of play? I don't think it should be a shock. If it's a shock, it means we haven't done our job properly in terms of helping them get there.
And that goes back to the accountability of the coaches, doesn't it? Some are system-led, some are styles, but it's the opportunity to recognise those moments where it's not new. They're there because they can, and it goes back to Lee's earlier point. The talent just gets them there. Now it's that everything else that comes with it, based around understanding the game to make them better.
I think as well with the different exposure that the player gets, it builds up a bit of inner resilience, because they're coming up against all different kinds of shapes in terms of like tactical, all different kinds of opponents, and you know yourself, the first day on camp international wise, you know, you could do the most low key session that you could design, but the tempo and the intensity is so high because they all want to show each other how good they are. So it's always good seeing, you know, the top players at the top clubs almost come together and want to show each other how good they are, because again, that sometimes kicks them onto another level. When you think you're doing well and you see another player and train with him, you think, oh, you know, he's very good. You know, it sometimes, you know, gives him that spur to improve and keep going. And he's definitely done that. Whatever, like Brian says, whatever challenge has been thrown his way, he's took it on board.
So if we pick that up, he's coming into the early years at 16 and developed through the pathway. And you and I had a conversation the other night, didn't we, Lee, about that he's now that A-grade talented player.
Yeah.
So that Premier League debut, is that a critical point within his development to now go, this is your next challenge and step within international football, based around a selection of a really talented group?
Yeah, I was going to say the competition that he's up against, depending on what position Adi would look at him for, is fierce. So, you know, for him to keep progressing through the system, he has to keep improving. But if you look at the different slides we've had on, you know, his progression is very quick, isn't it? And it seems to be going in one direction. So I can't see why this doesn't continue. And you know, it's important that, you know, as a organisation, we're aligned with the club in terms of where they see him going, because like it's so important. Like, you know, we're only part of his development. All of his main development will be at Arsenal. It's just important that, you know, we can support where and when possible.
And it's interesting, isn't it? So we're talking about this adaptive player who can apply himself anywhere on the pitch, but at times it could be a hindrance to that current group because there's such a talented group. But like you say, he's doing okay, isn't he?
Yeah.
Ryan, in the discussions within him and his development from that transitional element to 23s, was it ever discussed with Ben about Bukayo going out to gain some different experiences, that transition to men's football, or is it he was already in that pathway of the previous managers and now under Mikel?
I think, I've just seen the question in the chat. I think that with Bukayo, because he had done, as an under-16, he had been involved with the under-18s with Kwame and Ken, and he had performed well. He literally left school as a first-year scholar. He did the pre-season with the under-23s, and obviously we were very mindful of the fact that we was introducing him to full-time football. So, you know, there were certain days where he would, you know, have a recovery session, and we had to be mindful of that. But like I say, he started off last season in the under-23s, and I think that he made his Premier League debut. I think it was New Year's Day against Fulham. Yeah. You know, and then almost his day-to-day performances, whether that be with the first team or when he was playing in first team Europa League games, kept him in and around the squad. So all of a sudden, he's almost jumped into the territory of he's at our club almost beyond the loan move, with regards to the fact that, you know, he's actually in consideration every week to be part of the squad. I think that if he had maybe not had the opportunity to play as many games in our first team this year, he would maybe have been one of those that we would internally be speaking about for a loan. But the fact is that he's, like I say, he's in that 18 months since his loan, he's gone and really kicked on. And I think that, you know, come the end of this season, you could argue that he's almost got himself within the starting lineup for you know, most games, with regards to his in consideration as being a starter, which I think is fantastic. But like I say, I do feel that if he hadn't have had the minutes this year, that he would have to have done that next year for sure, for his own development, you know. I think it's important with these young players that they are, you stretch them, you consolidate, you stretch, you consolidate. It would have been a negative for me for him to have gone to then, being involved last season, but then this year not have played any games.
You talk about that stretch element. So he's a young Q1, isn't he? Is he Q1 birthday, I believe? Youngster.
Yeah.
But it's like that passage. It's never really bothered him, hasn't he? So you put him up to stretch him, and he copes in all of the four corners. Brings back down. Doesn't bat an eyelid. Continues, and at times shows the best player.
Yeah.
And then he goes again, and he's got that inner drive and mentality, resilience, all of those words that we keep hearing, just to keep going. What do you think his personal next challenges are then? So it's an outstanding year. What do you think his challenges are?
So, and again, I think this is what comes with the territory now in the modern game with these players. So he is a role model internally, and it's so if you set aside what he's doing on the pitch, so I go back to off the pitch. So walking around the training ground, you couldn't tell that he's in and around the first team, with regards to how he conducts himself. He's just like one of the other, young kids, his peer group, his same age. So I think that certainly, we've got to understand that we are dealing with young people here, and he is very young. So I think that, being a role model, there are going to be eyes watching, and I think that we've got to be mindful of that. So I think that would be a challenge. I also think as well, with regards to on pitch, like I said, I believe that he is, he's certainly enforcing his play in every game that I see him play in. So therefore, he's building a reputation. And obviously, when you build a reputation, people expect you to deliver that consistently. And listen, that's hard going. So I think that's certainly going to be the next challenge that he'll face, hopefully. But like I say, I really think that we are, we're speaking about an individual here that has got, his feet firmly on the floor. And I'm sure that, he's in a good place to tackle those challenges next season.
I was going to say, Ryan, what impact has he had on the academy when the lads can see that there's a pathway? I know there always has been, like, in terms of sometimes you see, it actually kicks a few of them on.
Yeah, well, it's funny because he has a positive one with regards to how he conducts himself. So he shows his best self on and off the pitch. So it doesn't matter if it's a video analysis session or a gym session or a football session. For sure. I think that gives a strong message. And interestingly as well, I think sometimes the younger players can sometimes get a real boost of confidence when they see one of their peers go and perform. And also as well, it can give the more, the older, younger pros a bit of a kick up the bum as well, because he's putting them under pressure. So, and I think that's healthy, so a lot of our players that may be playing his position, there is an element where we are using Bukayo to say, okay, so look, that's you've got to maybe look at getting him out of your spot, and you can use players to motivate other players as well, so 50% in terms of, okay, so look, can you be better than Bukayo? But also there's a message there around, there is a pathway if you perform and if you do the right thing at the right time on and off the pitch. So I think that, he can be a role model for many different things.
Yeah. And for the coaches as well, because is it right he makes the Europa debut and comes back and straight back to the academy to say thank you, and here's his debut shirt. It's just him, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think that what that does is that that maybe shows the boys, there's always going to be an element of understanding what we're here to do, which is ultimately is to help them as people and as players.
Agreed.
We're realistic. we don't say to the boys that every single one of you is going to have a career and every one of you is going to be playing for Arsenal's first team. But I think that if they understand that, essentially as staff, what you're trying to do is get them to the, into the first team if possible, or someone else's first team, and they understand that that's what we're, there to do. I think they sort of can maybe reflect on his journey and understand that.
Yeah, no. I think if we talk about what the essence of this was to have an understanding of those early years, what his development looked like, and there's lots of chat about moving him up as a talented player. How did we manage it? But he also manages himself so well, doesn't he? And I think that's a massive part of this development journey, that he just gets it, doesn't get overawed by it. He's just a kid doing the things that he loves in a massively experienced group, and he'll continue to do it.
Yeah, I think one of the key things that is recognisable in top players is the mentality. We've spoke about how do we think he's going to cope with setbacks. Well, I think you can always tell that by how do they cope when they're having a lot of success, and because he seems so consistent, it's almost like you can see that it'll be very level when things aren't going so great for him, because of he's got that really tough, strong mentality, and that's, like I said, that's testament to all of the coaches that have and obviously his family as well, that have had a real impact on him.
Yeah, and I think Ryan and I caught up earlier, and he's unique, the fact he enters the door at 8, and he'll probably have 13 development coaches across that journey.
Yeah,
and not one speaks badly of him. So there has to be a testament to the parents and his upbringing, a testament to his grounded and his school application, and a testament to him, the player. And I suppose the challenge is that he'll continue to go on this journey, and hopefully, as we said, the future of Arsenal looks really promising, because we've just spent the last 45 minutes just lightly touching some questions and implications for us, the coaches, but he's not the only one either. It's just that he's that shining light at the moment. If I go like 2 more questions, one for you, Lee. If it was to prepare for the September camps in this period where not a lot of football's happening, but he is, because the season's been extended with the cup final.
Yeah.
For the coaches listening, what would you be looking at and for from him?
Well, similar to what he's been doing since he's been involved, that consistency. We always look at try and look as much as we can of the character and the mentality of the player, his body language, how he interacts with his teammates. That's right from the warm up to the match. And like I say, he looks like he's on an uphill progression, that it looks like he's doing really well, and hopefully that continue. And like you've just mentioned, the fact that Reece is playing well as well, Joe Willock's playing well, Eddie's playing well. The more younger Arsenal players, the more comfortable I'm sure he feels within the team. Looking at little things like looking at the kit launch today, the fact that they've put all the younger players launching the kit. Yeah. There seems to be, and obviously Mikel's helped that, but there seems to be a real feel-good factor around the club.
Agree.
I don't know if Ryan would agree with that at the minute, and like I say, he's going the right way about definitely progressing into our group.
And listen, I'm fortunate. It is a special place when you turn up and you can see the impact of the stuff that's happening. Last one from you, Ryan, then. So how important is yours and Steve's and that collective MDT about the coach behaviours to manage and deal with these real talented groups, and how do you manage their behaviours and emotions when it does get tough, I suppose?
Yeah, so it's a really good question, and I think that probably with the under 23 age group, more than anything, I think you need to have multiple different hats that you wear at different times with different players. So you need to have a little bit of empathy, because I do feel that there are some challenges that you can have when you are you know, potentially in and out of a first team squad. You can go sometimes a long time without playing a game. And I feel that, you know, like anything, when you are a youngster and you've had a taste of being in and around the first team and then you don't, and sometimes it's you haven't done anything wrong, but it can be sometimes for your own good that you're not involved in a squad because maybe they're just looking at your loads and so on. I feel that, you know, it's about communicating honestly and openly, but doing it in an individual way, so that hopefully that individual player understands the why to what's currently happening with them in those awkward moments. And I think that dependent on the individual and the relationship or the relationships that you have with them, that will always look slightly different. I think going back to what you just said there about the MDT approach, that is vital, because obviously my context of whatever player that is maybe going through a good patch or a bad patch, that will be my context. But what enriches that is when you've got multiple views on the player, and certainly, you know, you'll find that certain staff members might pick up on something that maybe I don't see. So I think that staff communication is vital. Listen, it's vital for all players, not just ones that are potentially, you know, in and around your first team.
No, agreed, and I think that's a real good place to finish this. The time has absolutely flown by. There's been some great discussions, and if it's the implications for the coaches, it's our opportunity and job to help them get better and manage of all those processes based around whatever model and ideals we see. I'd like to say a massive thank you to both of you. Ryan, thank you for giving up your time. I know you've been back in today. Lee, thank you for an insight based around England teams.
Thank you.
Those that have listened up, thank you for your time. If you are interested, there's going to be 2 more insights based around Arsenal and Chelsea in the next coming week. So keep an eye out for those, and they are logged on into the web chat this evening. Other than that, I thank you again for your time. I hope this has been an insight into what we see as a real potential player, and hopefully one that will continue his development with AD and Lee's 21s, and then who knows what the future likes for an England full international. Thank you for your time. Take care. Good night.
Thank you.